So we know that Palantir and their leadership are pretty important people. Alex Karp, Peter Thiel, they've had their hands all over the entire world. Peter Thiel seeded the first money for Facebook. I think he gave them like 500,000 for 7% in the beginning. Alex Karp has been around for the past 17 years, building a company that has protected the West from terrorist attacks, especially in Europe. So Peter Thiel and Alex Karp running Palantir, very, very important company, very, very important people. When you are this important, when you are this elite, when you are this vital, when society recognizes you as someone who really is making a difference in the world, you get invited. You get invited to the cool kids club. You get invited to places that most people don't get invited to. And as of 2 days ago, Palantir got invited, let's go right here, to the Bilderberg meetings. At first glance, when I heard of this, I was like, is this Build-A-Bear? Like, are we in fifth grade? Are we building a bear or something? No, the Build-A-Bear meetings, okay? Bilderberg. Let's just read a little bit off their website, okay? Since its inaugural meeting in 1954, the annual Bilderberg meeting has been a forum for informal discussions to foster dialogue between Europe and North America. Every year, approximately 130 political leaders and experts, so only 130, right? Out of 8 billion people in the world, 130 are chosen. From finance, labor, academia, and media are invited to take part in the meeting. About 2/3 of the participants, about 66%, come from Europe and the rest from North America, 1/3 from politics and government, and the rest from other fields. The meeting is a forum for informal discussions about major issues. They are held under the Chatham House rule, which states that participants are free to use the information received, but neither the identity nor the affiliation of the speakers or any other participant may be revealed. Very interesting. Thanks to the private nature of the meeting, the participants take part as individuals rather than any official capacity, and hence are not bound by the conventions or their office or their pre-agreed positions, meaning you're not representing the company, you're representing yourself as an individual. If you come from a company or come from a government, as such, they can take time to listen, reflect, and gather insights because there's not like these restrictions on you. There is no detailed agenda, no resolutions are proposed, no votes are taken, and no policy statements are issued. This is really interesting, okay? So the Bilderberg meeting, it just concluded from June 2nd to June 5th in Washington, D.C. Here are the lists of participants. If I Command F Karp, there's our boy, Alex Karp, USA CEO, Palantir Technologies. And if I do Thiel, Peter Thiel, President, Thiel Capital, LLC. Now, when I saw this news, the first thing I realized was like, okay, I definitely know why Alex and Peter are invited. I mean, they're elite individuals, very, very, with all the stuff that's happening with Russia and Ukraine, and Alex Karp just did a photo op with the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. It's very obvious that these guys are important. They play an important role in the world. And when you're an important person, you get invited to important things. I'm just wondering, what the heck is this Bilderberg meeting like really about? Okay, so let's go to the background. The annual meeting is a 3-day forum for informal discussions designed to foster dialogue between Europe and North America. There's no TED Talks. There's no video of this. It's just people in a fancy room talking. The first meeting took place in Oosterbeek, the Netherlands, from 29th to 31st May 1954. Representatives from economic, social, political, and cultural fields were invited to informal discussions to help create a better understanding of the complex forces and major trends affecting Western nations in the difficult post-world period. This was after World War II. So they were like, hey, it's like a big-ass podcast. Everyone comes together and they're kind of just talking about stuff. Throughout the years, the annual meetings have become a forum for discussion on a wide range of topics, from trade to jobs, technology, from monetary policy to investments, ecological challenges. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this, and then we'll get back into this website because I want to show you their FAQ, because their FAQ revealed a lot, is there's a reason this is for invitees only, and this is also a reason this is not publicized. Meaning, the amount of content these guys would be able to create from this 3-day meeting, I mean, you would have probably like 30, 40, 50 talks. They could be published as YouTube videos and podcasts and little short clips. People could consume this stuff. There's probably keynotes. They want to keep it informal, and for obvious reasons, right? Because when things are formal, you start to not say what you actually feel, and that ruins the whole spirit and ethos of the discussion. So if Karp, really feels a nuclear war is going to happen, he doesn't have to worry about it being seen on video and him being, quoted as this. He can just go into the conference and be like, hey, I think a nuclear war is going to happen. I don't think we're talking about it enough. But why would you stop the rest of the world from accessing that information? This is always the question you have to ask yourself when something is private. So for example, if you do Netflix, right? Why does Netflix have their subscription-based content? Is because they want to sell content that they work very hard to create, and they believe there's a monetary value attached to that. I'm not saying this conference wants to sell their content or the content they would create out of all these talks if they recorded them. I rather want to say that if you're not giving it out to free, if you're not open sourcing the information, there's something about that information that is meant to be hidden. There's something about that information that is not meant to be consumed by the public. Either you charge people money for the content, right? So there's a exchange of value, or you give it out for free to be able to get the attention. So if you're an advertising business, like you give out the article for free and there's some ads in the middle of the article, or you charge a subscription. If you never give the content and it's only for the people that you have invited to be able to visit the article or watch the video or whatever, then that means there's some information there that's very interesting. I'm not trying to be conspiratorial here. What I rather am trying to say is that in these types of meetings, you really want to ask yourself, why is the CEO of these types of companies like Palantir being invited? And it's probably because there are particular things being talked about in that meeting that have to do with the geopolitical crises that are going on, the international crises, the economic issues with inflation in the West. Why is this stuff happening, and why are these leaders being invited? It's probably because these leaders have a certain POV, a point of view that is differentiated from the rest of the world, and that quite honestly, maybe the rest of the world can't handle. If someone comes out and says there's going to be a nuclear war tomorrow, the world would freak out, right? Especially if it's someone of high importance. Like the president can't come out and say that, because that's really like the entire world would be like, why is he saying that? So if Karp believes that, and I'm using nuclear war as one example, this might be a conference where he is able to actually express those ideas in a much more informal way without having to worry about the ramifications of what he's actually saying. So let's look at their FAQ. Where and when will the Build-A-Bear meeting to be placed? Information about our next meeting will be available in all other years. What are the Bilderberg meeting and goals? To foster dialogue. Who leads the meetings? The Foundation Bilderberg meetings is led by a steering committee. Its current co-chairs are Victor Harberstadt and Marie Josie. Okay, I don't even know this. Let's Google these guys right now. Who the heck is Victor? Victor Harberstadt is a Dutch economist from the Netherlands. Okay, and then who is Marie Josie Kravis? Who's this person? She is she's a Canadian business person and philanthropist. Okay, that doesn't give that much information. Interesting. Okay, well, there's... Who are the participants of the annual Bilderberg meeting? The participants list changes from year to year and is published on a website a few days before each meeting. Diversity of backgrounds, views, generations, and genders. Participants take part in the meeting as individuals in their own right. What criteria do I have to meet, and what do I have to get an invitation for the meeting? Please note, there is no application process for joining the Bilderberg meeting. Participation is for invitees only, meaning if you ain't getting invited, you ain't getting in. So how does the invitation procedure work? Participation is for invitees only as curated by the steering committee from leaders who distinguish themselves in areas of government, business, technology, blah, 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 blah. There's always a comprehensive discussion to ensure diversity in background, views, generations, and gender. Interesting. So a committee determines who's fit to be in this meeting. Look, again, I'm not trying to sound conspiratorial. It's just like kind of happy Peter and Alex got invited to this thing. I'm like, this is like pretty important people. The meeting is closed to reporting journalists in order to encourage the highest level of openness and dialogue. So again, they don't want to put out the content. They want things to be extremely informal. As a result, there is no accreditation to journalists. Each year, journalists have attended a Titree personnel. With such high caliber guests, why is there so little media coverage? Bilderberg meetings never sought any public attention. Well, obviously. An annual public press conference on the eve of the meeting was held for several decades up until the 90s, but it was stopped due to lack of interest. However, the list of participants, main topics, and the location are always fully published. Yeah, that means nothing, right? Like no one cares. Like it's great to tell me that Peter Thiel is going to a meeting. I want to know what's happening in the meeting. And when you don't want media attention, you try to say the media doesn't care about you, when in reality, if you publish these talks on YouTube, they would hit the algorithm and there would be some views. Trust me on that. In today's information society, with so many participants regularly underscoring the importance of transparency, how do you justify imposing this rule of like secrecy? Participants are, of course, free to discuss ideas expressed in the meeting in general terms and do so every year. However, as in many meetings across the world, participants agreed not to quote each other. The reason for this is because you're not going to get invited again if you say, oh, Alex Karp said blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, you're not getting invited, bro, if you tell the public that. This is to ensure all participants feel they can speak freely in an environment of trust. Do participants pay to attend? The budget of the secretary is limited to staff and administrative costs, the hospitality costs, blah, 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 blah. There is no attendance fee. Why does Bilderberg attract criticism from certain groups and individuals? The Bilderberg meetings have often been the target of anti-globalization protests and various conspiracy theorists. Again, I'm not trying to be conspiratorial, but it's just interesting. It kind of has the makings of a conspiracy theory. Have expressed wild allegations about the purpose of the gatherings. While these claims lack any and all merit, we regret to see that so many continue to flourish online in social media groups. Well, if you told us what the content was about, there would be no conspiracies. But if you got to be secret in order for the content to be informal, I understand why you got to be secretive, but people are going to speculate what's going on in these meetings if you're not open about it. Finally, In the past, some meetings appear to have taken place with major levels of security. How can this be justified? Some of the participants have constant security requirements wherever they are. These requirements set the general standard of security surrounding the meeting. Bilderberg meetings respects these requirements. Obviously, you know, if you're someone like Peter Thiel, Alex Karp, you probably spend a decent amount of money on security. I think like Jeff Bezos and Mark, they spend like a couple million a year on security because they're very, you know, important individuals, and there's always attacks that could potentially happen on them. So it's interesting, man. Bilderberg meetings. I don't really have a take on this other than I'm happy that Karp and Peter got invited, because it's pretty cool to see the CEOs of your company get invited to something like this. And hopefully they got some more information at those meetings. Hopefully they were able to do some networking at those meetings. Hopefully they were able to close some deals at those meetings. If these are the meetings, you might be able to close some deals. And I guess we'll see what happens as a result of these meetings going into the future. Thank you guys for listening. Let me know your comments on what you think about the Bilderberg meetings taking place and Palantir leadership getting invited to it. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you in the next one.